My name is Christopher. That's in Denis. Fusatavoy, Kenan, Karistafa. Everyone hear that? No? Should I talk louder? Okay. Okay. My name is Christopher, or just Chris. My first encounter with the Denis language was while reading the Book of Atris in 1995. After Ribbon came out, I noticed the fan presence on the internet, and especially that Leland and others had deciphered the Denis writing system based on clues in the game and a few transliterated words on Cyan's website, and English translations of some Denis texts from Atris's map in the Book of Tiana. That's a historical picture of Leland's Rehev Corps. Early fan word lists collected confirmed information, but many publishers' words and texts were never fully explained. A few years later, I obtained permission from Cyan to create a web page that I called the Dictionary of the Language of Denis. I tried to record all the information, explained or not, and to keep track of the sources. When the DRC opened the cavern to explorers, Damare and Jerly formed a group named the Denis Linguistic Fellowship with an out-of-cavern forum where those interested in studying the languages could discuss and analyze in-cavern revelations. At that time, the Denis language guide was published in MIST 5. And it's falling apart, so if anyone wants to look at it, you can talk to me later. And that's a historical picture of the... Sorry. Hello. So that's the Denis Linguistic Fellowship website. And that was up for about a decade. Before diving into the language, I should briefly sketch my assumptions. Cyan has always maintained that the stories they tell about the Denis are based on historical records, so I accept that the language is part of those records. While Cyan has fictionalized parts of the history for purposes of storytelling and gameplay, the details of the language seem rarely to enter into this, so I assume it has never been deliberately misrepresented. There is evidence that the Denis themselves were human-like, so I analyzed their language based on what we know of how human languages seem to work, insofar as the evidence fits such an interpretation. So, ton changes a verb to a noun that performs the verb. Barrelton, maker. Biriton, maintainer. Endaton, builder. Gelton, writer. Kesselton, changer. Lesuton, carrier or courier. Miston, speaker. Nezaton, reader. Tekton, worker. Other translations: Ariaton, protector. Fengiston, actor, a person who plays a role. Marnton, creator. Chizoton, archivist. Lenshoton, tourist. Aroton, outsider, a worlder, which is from an adjective. The different ways of translating ton reflect some features of English. Thus, in Ariaton protector, the English suffix is spelled or because sometimes the words are spelled historically rather than phonetically. In the case of Chizoton, archivist, and Lenshoton tourist, the English suffix ist implies that the action is long-term, and in Denis, the suffix ton seems to encompass this without a distinction. The noun aroton, meaning outsider, is derived from an adjective instead of a verb. This variant usage of deniton is what linguists call an exception to the grammatical rule. So, tav changes a verb into a noun. So, mistav, speech, aryatav, protection, gidtav, excavation, marntav, creation, ruetav, destruction, kesotav, change, tiktav, work, fusatav, name. So now we're going to see if you are all listening, and we're going to give the ton form of these same verbs. So protector is aryatan. Excavator is gidtan. Creator is marta. Destroyer, ruekta. Changer, kesotan. Worker, and caller. Fusatan, yes. Okay, that was fun. Etz makes a noun into an adjective. Bonuets, acidic. Palmanets, magnetic. Garcolets, stormy. Pradets, rocky. Tromets, winged. Vogets, natural. Faets, first. And torets, fourth. S changes an adjective into a noun. So, Garoth can mean greatness or great one, mighty one. Hutsaith, holiness. Gitsoth, safety. Jeruth, possibility. Soigith, stability. Remespeteth, diligence. Enyaloth, sickly one. Karoth, brave one. So you notice there were slightly different translations for some of these. So let's see if we can get the alternative translation for some, like Hutsaith means holiness. What else does it mean? Anyone? Yeah, who said that? Good. So, Remespeteth is diligence. What else does it mean? Yes, diligent one. So, Enyaloth means sickly one. What else does it mean? Yeah, sickness, illness, yeah. And Karoth means brave one. What else does it mean? Bravery. You guys are good. So, Esh changes an adjective into an adverb. Chilesh, mainly. Garosh, greatly, mightily. Kagesh, originally. Nigesh, merely. Tenesh, simply. And then we have some exceptions, though. Tsano means everlasting or permanent, but san means forever, which is similar to permanently. So possibly sanesh could also be used, but we don't have any evidence for that. And then we have the adjective fam meaning far and the adverb fam meaning far with slightly different implications, but no use of esh. All forms a present participle adjective from the verb. So misal speaking, tigal working, prad tigal rock working, soidal glowing, falaal folded, nekasal bent, twisted, ranal various, sogal sunny, bright. And I've given some attested phrases for them, and it shows how the participle always comes after the noun, just the way an adjective does. So let's just look a little closer at some of that. So for all the published rule for its use is somewhat technical, forms a present participle adjective. What linguists mean by participle is a word derived from a verb which modifies the meaning of a noun. So in functions, participle are a kind of adjective. In the example of tija, tigal, working squad, again meant that the squad were in fact working in his new age at the time he describes. The phrase poiti soidal, glowing bulbs, describes an ongoing condition. Denis sometimes uses all in this way where English doesn't use ing. For instance, in the translation, borrow nekasal, bent borrow. From the point of view of Denis, the bentness of the borrow is something going on in the present, and they use a present participle. Et makes adjectives from nouns or verbs. So, oh. Yeah. I shouldn't. Did I let the microphone get too close to them? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Don't want to get too close, but I can't get too far or I can't see it. Et makes adjectives from nouns or verbs. Itinerant, beautiful. Shorat, peaceful. Ticolit, sorrowful or sorry. Vamot, eastern. Baronet, phosphorescent. And from verbs we get chevet, thankful. Tiget, working. So the words itinerant, beautiful, ticolit, sorrowful, and chevet, thankful suggest a correlation with English adjective forming suffix full. So, for instance, from law, ordinance, we get been taught lawful. So, looking at the nouns, what does aramet mean? Right, skillful. And what does yeshat mean? Right. And what does zophate mean? And what does malot mean? Forgetful. And sophagut. And zudut. Yeah. You guys are really good. Okay. In forms a past participle adjective from the verb. So gelen, written. Real gelen, unwritten. Real tagamen, unknown, from tagam, no. And rileronen, which is fun to say, unexplored. Oshanin, lost. And bavanin, which probably means hidden. We have the verb bavan and we have the adjective bavanin, but we don't have a translation, but it looks like it means hidden. And then we have some other words that are similar formed. Delen means misty. It also means mist. And melon means outer. So since these Denis suffixes that we've covered, most of them, have generally stated rules and multiple examples, linguists term them productive. In contrast with these, languages also have derivative suffixes with multiple examples, but no general rule. Linguists call these suffixes unproductive. So English, for example, has the suffix ship. In friendship, membership, penmanship, workship. Speakers recognize these, but they have to learn the words individually. The term unproductive is somewhat hypothetical. We don't have native Denis speakers to tell us, for instance, if in can be used to derive adjectives from all verbs, or whether there is a verb underlying delen, misty, or melon, outer. So, another method of derivation is to combine two words to form a compound. So, anotom, lava, is derived from ano, water, plus tom, fire. Krogestoi, the art of dancing, is from crow, move, plus gestoi, art. Tsav tigtag, biology, is from sav, live, and tigtog, study. Korania, blank book, is from kor, book, and nia, new blank. Vagafa, 6, is from vat, 5, plus god, plus ga, plus fa. Teluk, Guild of Surveyors, is from tel, plus look. Actually, the full form would be luktanti. And notice in that example that, I wonder if this will work. Notice how we've got tel with an L at the end, and with tel with an L at the end, and then look with L at the beginning. But the compound is just teluk. Dini doesn't ever double consonants, and so when they come together like that, it just drops one of them. Fun fact. Bivrov, everyone is from biv, every plus rov, person. So, according to the Dini language guide, the structure of a simple Dini sentence is noun, adjective, tense, prefix, verb, actor, suffix, adverb. What's interesting for our purposes is that noun, adjective is the normal order. So the simplest compounds use this order with an adjective after a noun. Gormot is gor plus mot. Gormot then is time plus that. Korfa, first book, from book plus first. Korvak, linking book, from book plus linking. And Rovhu, holy person, saint, from Rov and just the first part of Hutse, holy. So it's shortened the second element. Terpara is great tree, and Togitsa is haven, from place and safe. A similar ordering is seen with compounds formed from noun plus noun, where the second element will qualify the meaning of the first, similar to an adjective. So, total is from place plus guild, meaning guild hall. Mishtanya, prophet, is from Mishtan, speaker, plus the beginning of Yavo. Shia, angel, is from the beginning of Shitem Sutan, messenger, and the beginning of Yavo. Prad Nuriti, money stone, is from Prad, rock, and Nuriti, money. Tigtog, study, is from the beginning of Tigtov, work, plus the beginning of Tagamtov, both of which we saw before. Tomagillo, garden, is from the beginning of Tomana, home, plus Gillo, plant. So, home for plants, it's a garden. Ayohik, which we all know is a kind of game, that comes from ayo, meaning icon or symbol, and hik, meaning cane. And I'll leave you to puzzle why that name is that, if you don't already know. Nobody knows, yeah. Alongside the adjective Teagal, working, we listed Prad Teagal, rock working, derived from Prad, rock, plus Teague, work, plus all. The phrase Tija Teagal means that the squad is one that works. Doi Hati Prad Teagal specifies further that the thing the machines work is Prad, rock. So similar compounds with the added noun at the beginning are duasholtan, or ducholhan, from do food plus shol, prepare. Shitemsutan, messenger, from shitem plus the end of lesu, carry, plus tan. Shokrotan, bulldozer. We know that's from dirt plus crow, move plus tan. It's not clear what the word for dirt is, because remember that rule we had that double consonants are simplified. Well, it could be that the word is shok and the K's, double K has been simplified, or it could be show. So that's another mystery. Korbop bookmaking is from kor, book, and from ba, the beginning of the word making, which in full would be baroltav. So, as Korba bookmaking shows, a compound may leave some information only expressed by implication. The component ba implies the entire idea of making as an activity, which would by itself be expressed as baralta, which I guess I just said. This seems to have led to compounds where a noun as the second component implies an activity or other verbal noun. For instance, in the age name datemne, which is translated fire marble root, it's a compound of the beginning of dako marble plus tom fire plus ne root. The last component refers to the fact that the age is the source of the materials for producing fire marbles. So a meaning like fire marble producing age would explain why datem has been placed before ne in this compound instead of after it would be if root read literally a root that was made of fire marble. That would be ne datam instead of datamne. So, or so I speculate. So, adjective plus noun compound. You see how we're covering every combination on it here. So, as an exception to the usual order of noun plus adjective, certain adjectives are placed before the noun that they modify when occurring in a compound. So, from garo, great, mighty, we get garo hefty, mighty words, garkal, storm, garano, probably meaning ocean, and gartavo, which is a special word for 25 tavoti. From para, great large, we get parano, possibly meaning sea, or partavo, which is the word for 5 tavoti. Biv, all, every, gives our compounds like bivdil, everything, and bivrov, everyone. So, we've looked at groups of words that share a common element. Linguists call such elements a morpheme. And that's just incidental information. These can sometimes take different shapes, and that's important. We saw this with the adverb forming suffix esh, with the form being sh when added to an adjective ending in a vowel. So you got garosh, greatly, from garo plus sh. But the form is eth when added to an adjective ending in a consonant. So from chill, main, we got chill esh, mainly. An example of a basic word that has this kind of variation is garo, great, which we saw, whose longer form occurs in several derived words, garoth, garosh, garohevti, but is also likely to appear as a shorter form gar in garkal, garano, and gartavo. So these are the morpheme variants that we saw in our various examples. So para, large, is a separate word, but par is the form in partavo and parano. Dako, marble, we saw is just shows up as da in datemne. Vat 5 is shortened to va in vaga fa 6, vaga bri 7, etc. Baral, make, was shortened to ba in korba, bookmaking. Hutse, holy, was shortened to hu in rov hu. Yavo has a form ya in mishtanya, prophet and shia, angel. And tagamno had the form tag in tiktag, study. And finally, lesu, Gary, had the form su in shitem sutan. So, with variants like these, we're starting to glimpse the underlying history behind the Dini language. We don't usually have enough data to provide an etymological analysis confidently, although we can sometimes see what the possibilities are. Thus, for Yavo and Shia, it may be that Shia, angel, was a shortening of an older compound, Shiyavo. Or there may be a shorter term, Ya, that originally meant something like divine, from which Yavo was a derivative. And the fact that we might not only connect Shia to Shitem, message, but perhaps also to Shiga, way, path, since messengers follow ways and paths, suggests further lines of investigation. So, So as a closing thought in Denis and about Denis, Ishirema rebaraltan, shitenema rebaraltav, tomat hurim getan.
Time for questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Any? That's all right. We don't seem to have any questions. Everybody yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
We have the technology.
Yeah.
Questions. Right. We had one over here. Yeah, you got it.
I was curious. A lot of the Denis translations seem to be very literal, and I was wondering if there's a lot of evidence of Denis slang or other like figurative, more poetic derivations of what words might mean.
Okay. Well, there actually is. I wonder if I can come up with an example. Is this still showing up? Yeah. I want to get out of exit full screen for now. Here.
Yes.
There's a word for stranger, and I wonder if I can find it in my own dictionary. Actually, let's see if it's listed under the stranger. It's not in there yet. If I can remember the name. Oh. Did I write it on my piece of paper? I think it's bell. What's the word for claim? I guess the short answer is I don't have an example offhand, but there are. Anyway, I think the word for stranger means a seldom claim or few claim. That's a combination of, I think it would be few goth or something like that would be few. And they, rather than a literal word, they have the word for strange, that is little few claim. So, and that comes from the people playing Unwritten have some strange seeds, and they have the translation of strange in that name. And do you have another question? Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. So I'm really new here, and I don't know a lot about this stuff. I was just wondering, when the language was originally written, was it written to be full and complete, or did they just have like ideas of some words and sentences they wanted in their games, and then it evolved into something else? I was just curious. I've also never read the book. Sorry.
Yeah. There's no one actually has been told how that happened. So I work from the theory that they got some records from the Denis and they put some words in the games. So that's. Yes.
Chris, just to set up the question here, we know that the Denis language is quite rich, right? We've got a lot of words here, but there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of stuff that just cannot be said in Denis. There's no way to fill in the gaps ourselves. And given that Cyan has more or less given open sourced the game and a lot of the content to the community at this point, and, you know, being careful of any IP, intellectual property, overlaps here, what are our options for creating our own Denis words, our own mashups of Denis words, concatenations, those kinds of things?
Okay, well, I guess partly I would say if you followed the different rules and learned them that I outlined, you can use all of those rules with, you know, with all of the words that we already have to come up with compounds, and you'll know what the literal meaning is. And if you want to use it metaphorically for something that someone else will get by your using the literal meaning and understand what your metaphor is, then that's a legitimate use of any language. So I would say you could do that. But as far as wanting to get more information about the actual historical Denis language, you just have to wait for Cyan to provide more of the information that they have.
But we know that's not going to happen.
Actually, it is happening. Every year, they present 25 or 30 new words. Yes.
Just a few words, perhaps.
Yes. Well, I don't know what to say to that.
Well, what I'm asking is in other words, to increase the vocabulary of Denis, we would have to get agreement from the linguistic community that this is going to be the word for that. It can't be just one-off, you know, somebody making up something and and telling everybody else to adopt to that.
Okay, well
that's my question.
Okay, well it's a good question. I would say it depends on what it is you want to do with the Denis language. If you just want to write your own poem, then you can think up the things that you know how to say and say them, and that's kind of what I do. But if you want to have a conversation with someone, then you're going to have to find someone who will agree to use the words that you would like to use as well. So, yeah. Basically what you're saying, but if you're asking for a top-down organization by somebody else to do it for you, that's not going to happen. Yeah. Yeah, but, yeah. A consensus that does work in normal languages by people inventing new words and then other people picking them up. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Hi there. I just noticed that you get a certain amount of overlap with some words and their pronunciation and meaning, like with ba, for instance, in ba-ro ta versus ba-ro. Is it kind of like Mandarin in that, you know, it's the same word, but you're just going to have to derive from the context what it means exactly? Because the two things don't mean the same thing. We're not talking about making anything when we say ba-ro. We're talking about a species.
Right. If you have basically the same sequence of sounds, that means two different things. What you have then is a pair of homonyms, yes, and they do. I mean, they occur in English. The example I gave of ship in worship, I mean, or friendship. I mean, nobody says enemy ship, but that's because enemy ship means something different than enmity does. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, so I was just curious about the punctuation rules. I see how like the periods are at the start of the sentence, and I was just curious if you could elaborate a little more on how that works.
Yeah, so we only really have 3 punctuation marks. We have the little dash that's at the bottom, you know, in the beginning for equivalent of a sentential period. So at the beginning of each sentence, you announce it by that period. There is a dash, which I showed at some of the examples of the suffixes, and that's a similar stroke, but it's in the middle of the line, and it sort of attaches to the rest of the word. That would be used just if you were splitting up a word between two lines, or if you want to show that you're breaking it up for analysis. I think I can't remember if there's something like a comma. There may not be. That could be it, basically. So you could put a dash in, to break up a sentence. But no, Denis doesn't seem to have, the kind of sets of punctuation that we have in English.
We are getting a lot of chatter from the back of the room that's making it a bit difficult to hear. So if you guys can be a little bit quieter, thank you.
Hello, I'm also kind of new to learning about the Dani language, and I was just curious, what do verbs have in the form of tenses? Is it like Mandarin where verb tenses don't really exist and you have to rely on context, or is there a rule for figuring out the tense of a word based on spelling?
Yeah, okay, good question. Yeah, I was focusing here on word derivation, but yes, there are tenses for present, future, and past. There's prefixes that are attached to the verb. There's also inflections at the end of the verb to indicate whether it's you or me or I. And so yeah, there is. I didn't cover any of that because that would be a whole nother hour-long, maybe 2-hour-long presentation. So, but thank you for asking. That's a good point.
Hello? Thank you. We have time for 3 more questions, so.
Okay.
I noticed.
That's okay. Hey, and thanks everyone for your patience. It's really appreciated.
Is this one working? Yay, it's working. I noticed of the compound nouns, some have apostrophes between the root words and some do not. Is there any sort of rules for when to use the apostrophe?
Okay, now that's a good question. The answer is we have a bunch of examples, but not enough to observe what the pattern is. So, and we're not even sure why. The apostrophe actually represents 2 different sounds. It represents an sound after a consonant. It represents a sound after a vowel, and it seems to come after certain words combined with other words, but we don't know the rules. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi. I want to invite a little speculation in terms of how, I guess, straightforward it is to create different kinds of words with these sort of suffixes and stuff. How likely do you think it is that Denis might have adapted loan words from other ages and kind of brought them into its language, or do you think as a culture it would have been pretty resistant to that?
Kind of both, I'd say. Yeah, I think that probably they did borrow some words, but the ones we know are just incidental creatures and place names from different ages, and a lot of that does not seem to flow into the language. It might be that they tended to take their own morphemes and combine them in new ways when they encountered something in an age that they'd never encountered before. They would do kind of what we have to do and make something up. And so, yeah, thank you.
We have time for one more question. Anyone else?
Hello. Maybe you already answered this and I missed it, but what actual other real world languages are you familiar or fluent in?
English. I know I know a little bit of Spanish, and I know a little bit of German and a little bit of French, a little bit of Latin. I don't really know any other language than English fluently. So. Okay, well I think that's it. So thank you, everyone.